Now that I'm like thinking back over some of these movies, man, I'm just like, man, we just kind of didn't get a breakout good movie this year. Like every other
I'm not
year.
disagree with you, but
What are you
I'm
saying? We've
thinking
got
this.
tarot.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Hey, welcome to our fifth annual 31 Days of Horror here at Ghost in the Magazine. As we do every year, we shift our episode release date from our usual Monday to line up with Halloween, which this year lands on a Thursday. We are currently on week 4, and this week's theme is loose screws. We discuss some as a group, and others will just get an introduction and a rating. So let's start with a quick introduction of the hosts, and we'll get on with the commentary. I'm Elle.
I'm Mel.
I'm Molly. I'm Al.
I'm Sadie.
Oh, you mentioned, I guess we were talking about culturally insensitive
Oh
movies, so
yeah.
Drag Me to Hell is naturally next.
I just
Yeah.
hate this movie so fucking much.
Same.
And like people call it such a classic, and it's not good. It's a bad movie. Like every step of the way, nothing makes sense. It's culturally insensitive. I can only deal with so much old dead lady vomit before I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, how many times is this girl gonna get gross shit in her mouth? Like,
I did like the chin gnawing scene when the old dead lady comes out and gnaws on that chick's chin and
Yeah.
I
like
did not like that. I
uh,
did not like that.
it was very gross, very gory. And yeah, where's our gore girl? She's not here. I go, okay, so she would get it. But yeah, I
This
thought that
movie
was
was
really gory.
viscerally disgusting, and then just the premise is like ridiculous, and it's like, why would you even curse the lady at it's not her fault. Like, what the fuck did she
Yeah. I
do?
feel like this movie was trying to bring back the word gypsy,
Yeah,
and it was just really culturally insensitive, like talking about like, people who are historically like Romani as like cursing people upon their death, and it's just
mhm.
yeah, really uh
Stupid.
ethnically insensitive. And
I can see that a bit. I think I when I compare this to like Thinner, which is the movie that I feel like this did a lot better than Thinner in that respect.
Mhm.
I didn't really like pick up on I don't maybe it's just because I'm being obtuse, but like I guess I didn't pick up on because Lamia is a like a Greek thing. So it is more like I thought it was more broad, but maybe it isn't. That's what I didn't pick up initially on like it being Romani the way that I picked up on it in Thinner that was very much like
yeah,
pointed towards it. So for me, like I get it, I see it, but like I just feel like they tried to dance around it a bit more. Does that make it better? I don't know. Probably not. For me, I feel like the consistency in the lore was a lot better than we see in a lot of these movies, as in like she thinks she's going to get out of it, but she doesn't because there's that mix up and she ends up having it in the end. And it's kind of like that the feeling again that they were saying they were going for with long legs were like evil reigns no matter what. Like you can't outdo it,
Right.
which I feel like the unfailing adhesion to the rules was what I liked about it, but I can see how it would just be gross and not, not somebody's cup of tea. It is very gross. It's very much a gross out movie. I actually thought maybe it got in the wrong category when I thought about it more, but I was just trying to plug movies in. Like it probably belonged in the gross out one.
it
It's
was
just
gross.
and it just loses me a lot with some of the plot, and it's just like now we got to do all these crazy rituals. This lady's seeing
Yeah.
stuff, and her boyfriend's acting like she's insane, and it's just like, and then all of a sudden he believes her. But then when at the end when he's like, "Do you have my quarter?" and you see this woman actively freaking out, and you're like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Didn't you just pay hundreds of dollars for her to deal with this, and you're wondering what the fuck is wrong?" Like, I will give them credit for that end scene. That's a good one. Like, but at the end of the day, it's just gross. It's just bleh.
Yeah. The goat imagery was too comical too.
Yeah,
They
Hmm.
didn't make that scary enough. It was just like, are you fucking serious? You know what I mean? So
it's just a goat. The goat's just like, why am I here? Like,
I
but
just have a strong, strong dislike of Justin Long. I just
I
can't
know.
stand his face and his voice,
That's
and
fair.
it's hard for me to like
He's a
even
horror like it
entertain.
boy though. Like,
Yeah, but
Why?
he doesn't
I
need
don't
to
know.
be.
He doesn't need to be, no, but ever since he was in, what was it?
The pedo
Jeepers
movie,
Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
just kind of been his
Jeepers
thing.
Creepers.
He is a fucking insufferable person though, and I swear every time I watch a movie with him in it, I hate him.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah, like I struggled to get through Barbarian, and I
Yeah.
love the concept of Barbarian, but like the
but
moment
he
he
was a
shows up, I'm
total
like,
dickhead in Barbarian, and
it's
he
like, why are
plays
you
that
here?
dickhead well.
Yes, I had like such a disagreement with our episode of that because it was Steph and Eric, and Eric was like, "Oh, I didn't get bad vibes from Justin Long's character." And I was like, "How can you not get bad vibes from a
He
character
was
played by
bad vibes
Justin
from the
Long?"
beginning.
Yes.
He's
He
he's
was
just he is just a walking bad vibe.
He's a bad vibe. That's true. I
yeah.
didn't rewatch this for this. I had watched it
Didn't either.
before, so I was going
No
off
one
of
needs to.
memory with
Yeah.
these ones. So I mean, I can now that you guys talk about it, like I rated it higher, but I think part of it was just like the movies that we had this time.
Yeah,
So
fair
like
enough.
just I was going off of my memory and it's a Raimi movie and you know how I am with the Raimis. I don't
I give
know.
it a two just because like some of it's decent with the scares and ridiculousness and like I did like the end scene because it's just like really out of nowhere.
Mm.
But my favorite part of the movie is her digging up a grave and all of a sudden it's like a fucking downpour for like no reason and now she's like just in the slop in the mud and I'm just like okay this is absurd and she did all that for fucking nothing.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about this and I like am more seeing it through different new eyes just because I haven't rewatched it, I would probably lower I think two is appropriate.
Yeah.
That's about where I'm at with it.
I gave it a 0.5, which I
Yeah, I'm
still
at a
think is
two.
too high.
I'm at a two on this one.
Yeah.
I'm glad she went to hell. I just wish I didn't have to go with her to watch this. So
Right. Oh my God. Yeah, fair enough.
But the Black Phone, it triggered my childhood trauma in a way that I had to walk away from the movie.
That's why I never watched it because just from what people were talking about, I was like, I can't
Yeah.
do it. So,
I started
Yeah.
watching, so I didn't this wasn't a rewatch, and part of that was because it wasn't available for free on any of the streamers that I have, and I'm not paying for something at this point. I pay for all the streaming services I pay for. But when I first watched it, that scene where the girl is cornered by her dad getting screamed at in the kitchen, I have lived that scene many times through my childhood, and that triggered me so bad. I started crying, had a
mhm.
really bad night, shut the movie off, and didn't come back to it for almost like right when it was on Peacock, I believe, when I first started watching it, and it was like right when it was about to go off the platform that I finished watching the movie.
Yeah, and it like triggered
yeah.
me, but I muscled through because like this was like in the middle of my divorce when I watched this movie. So I was like, at least it's a different kind of trauma. So I'm like, whatever. I don't have to think about him. I'll just be mad at my mom. Like, that's okay. But it was
Um,
rough. I'm not gonna lie.
I have seen it quite a few times now,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things about it that I really like. All of the abuse scenes were really, really upsetting, and like I did need to like pause it for a minute every time one of them came up.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of just really interesting choices made in it. I especially liked one of the first scenes that you see the black phone on the wall. It's expanding and shrinking, like it's breathing. I thought that slapped. I loved it.
Mhm.
The black cracks that came out from the phone looked like veins, which I also found really cool. I
Mhm.
found parts of it genuinely freaky, which like when the dead kids showed up, which I also thought was amazing. I think it honestly, I didn't expect to like it. It's like Hellhole in which I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And
Okay.
because I did enjoy it a lot more than I expected, it went up in my rating. I rated it really high on my top five
Mhm.
I think my
because
rating
it
is
just
low, it's just because like I know people like Ethan Hawke, but I fucking don't. So
Fair.
I don't know what it is about him, but I just
I
eh.
thought the inclusion of the mask was really cool because I think it was in the 1920s. Magicians used to wear masks during their like they did half the show as themselves and then the other half as like the devil,
Mm.
which is where this idea of the masks came from. And I just thought because they originally were gonna do a clown, And everyone's fucking scared of clowns. I just thought that was boring. And the
Yeah.
fact that they did a magician instead, I just thought that it would have been very easy for them to go with a clown. And I just thought it was really good. I love that movie. It's like in my top five horror movies. No, not my top five, top 10 horror movies of all time.
Yeah,
That's
for me, it was
I
just
liked it. I'm gonna give it like a 3.5. For me, it was kind of a cheap setting, a little bit one note. So I didn't love that aesthetically. There's not very much to like eat with your eyes.
Mhm.
So that kind of sucks. Limited dialogue in terms of which characters speak. That's
mhm.
not great, like script writing. So I didn't love that part. But also, it's like just too much like real world trauma for me to like enjoy. I'm like, even the seeing the dead kid. I mean, when you're in a traumatic situation, you can dissociate hard enough to see anything.
Right.
So that didn't even give it horror elements to me. It was just like inside the psyche of a traumatized child.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, you take your characters to a certain level of trauma, and even if they get out, your viewer doesn't care because it's going to be lasting. Like they didn't win, even if they, succeed and get out.
Yeah.
This could have
So
been an SVU episode, quite
yeah,
frankly.
so that kind of for me, I just was like, what a bummer. Oof. It was kind of a bummer. I think it was kind of visceral, like you get a bodily feeling from the type of discomfort it creates. The ick, really.
It
It
just
was
felt
alright.
sad. It just felt sad to me. That's what my whole like note on it was like, this just feels sad.
Yeah, that's all it was for me too. It's just sad. Like I'm not scared. I'm just fucking sad. Like this is some sad, sad, sad bullshit, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Well-made
Maybe
movie.
I'm just a masochist.
Yeah.
To me, it felt
Oh
like
my, but
a side plot in a Hannibal season. Like it gave me that kind of vibe of just like, oh, it's more true crimey. And I like Ethan Hawke, but again, it was written by Stephen King's son, and I don't
Oh, I
like
didn't know
the
that.
way any of the Kings write. And so I'm like, this is boring. This isn't doing anything for me. And it just feels like I feel like I'm watching like, where's Matthew McConaughey? This is True Detective.
Mm.
right. And that
And
was
so
my
it's like,
take out the supernatural elements. I'm like, this is like an SVU episode. Like Olivia
yeah,
Benson was researching for this kid in the basement somewhere while he's losing his shit. Like, like I don't know. And
yeah.
that's already enough. Like I watched that show and cry, and it's not even real. I'm just
It had elements I like. I like my true crime. I like my claustrophobic spaces, but I'm also just kind of like, and I like Ethan Hawke when it's like, yeah, it's like I've seen it once and that's good. I don't need to see it again. It was interesting. The mask was a really cool design, but I'm like, obviously you can't go with a clown because his dad is known for clowns. So, but they share the child abuse. Like, can't
Yeah.
share the clowns, but they
clowns
can
are
share the
so
child
funny.
trauma.
I
It's just
didn't know it was written by one of the Kings, to be honest. I don't know how I missed that.
I
And
think it's a
when I'm
short
looking it
story.
up.
It's either a short story or a novelette. It's a very small bit, but he also helped with the screenplay, from what I understand, to kind of expand on it.
Mm.
So
I think it was Ethan Hawke's idea to do the magician masks instead of the
I think
clown one.
so.
Clowns are dumb.
Clowns are dumb and overused.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna give this one a 3. It's like right in the middle of the road for me.
That's
Yeah,
what I gave it. Yeah.
3.
I gave it a 2.5 originally, but I'm gonna go to 2 because like I watched this at a very like probably should not have been watching this traumatic ass movie point in my life. Oh, I did that to myself, but it is what it is.
Molly.
I'm giving it a 4. Some of the scenes prior to the kidnapping were very upsetting, but I just thought it was neat. So 4.
Okay. This next movie is The Deliverance. I don't know how many of us watched this one.
I didn't see this one.
I think
Mm-mm.
it's just me, and we don't really need to talk about it because
Okay. It is viral right now because of the Glenn Close scene.
I feel like the way they try to talk about Glenn Close's character in the movie being like everybody knew someone like Glenn Close growing up, and I'm like, who the fuck is everybody? Because like, no, we didn't. Like, not in the black community. Like, if we did know her, we didn't like her. Like, But the
Yeah.
possession stuff was interesting and cool the way they did it, but I just couldn't get past just like how ridiculous everything felt and like how stereotypical a lot of the characters felt in the movie.
Mm.
That's all.
Yeah. I want to say that this is based on the Ammons haunting, which is like a case that happened in the Midwest. I don't remember where Zach Baggins bought the house and demolished it. And my big point about this movie, which I have I've told you guys before, and I want to say it on the podcast, is I am very happy that the filmmakers decided to go around Zach Baggins and cite the articles that were written about it instead of paying that bastard, because don't do that. That house is supposedly the reason he wears glasses, I believe, because the ghost knocked him so sideways. It was in that Demon House documentary. Steph and I covered that on a
That's
previous
just so
31
like
days.
that's just so self-serving. Shut the fuck up.
He's like that. That is the way he is. I'm not a Zach Baggins has come up
Yeah.
frequently, and
I
I'm
think
not
it's
a fan.
okay. I don't think it was a hit. I think the only reason that it became as viral as it was is because Glenn Close was just playing a snow bunny, real old one, and it
Yes, and
was funny, you
oh, that
know.
line, yes. It was
Yeah.
hilarious, but that was about what it had. I can't deny that the 2018 reimagining of Suspiria is gorgeously shot, choreographed, and costumed. There's a lot to take in, and so it should be when squaring up with the Dario Argento film. And in some ways, the reboot proved the versatility of the underlying ideas, because where even the bleakest Argento films tend to be bright and brilliant and turned up to 11, this movie hung back in the palette and created unnerve through somber tones and bleakness. And I understand why people would like a film like this. I know that several in our group rated it higher. In fact, it was me that rated it the lowest at 2.5 chuds. But my reasons are the same that I've given countless times. First, there's no excuse with that narrative that it needed to be 152 fucking minutes. There was a lot that could have been cut, and instead you come at me with 2 hours and 32 minutes of film. I have shit to do. If you're not deeply engaging me in a well-plotted and consistent story, I'm not in past 45 minutes, and frankly, that's about where I checked out here. And that's the thing. The lore was so confusing that I Googled it. And this shit is supposed to be a witch's Sabbath? This is a fucking unhinged coven worshipping demonic mothers doing evil shit for what? The sake of being certified bad dudes? A power struggle? For what? What's the fucking purpose? I'm still hazy, and I'm not rewatching that shit. Not at that runtime. Listen, as someone who comes from a rural community that was absolutely insane in the late 80s and early 90s when I was growing up because the two brain cell evangelical freaks had infiltrated absolutely everything and were doing modern day witch hunts because it was cheaper than the therapy they so desperately needed, I have very high standards for this type of movie. Whenever a movie brings up witchcraft, covens, or the demonic in any way, it needs to have a tight reason for it in the storytelling that makes sense, that drives the plot, and that doesn't fall into the hysteria without critically examining it. This movie being set in World War II during a time when fascists were even more fucking woo-woo than ever doesn't help with the strong ick I get from the lore side of the story. But then again, I could be missing something. And no, this isn't just a case of millennial brain rot. I will watch a 4-part documentary with hour-long episodes in a sitting easily if I'm not bored or mad. I can read 1,000 pages in a day. I will play the same fucking song for hours until I get every part of it exactly the way I want it. It's just that if a film demands a fully engrossed level of concentration to be understood and enjoyed, it requires a level of writing and editing that was just not met here, in my opinion. Where writing and acting are involved, found footage gets a lot more wiggle room than most subgenres, and Grave Encounters definitely takes advantage of that variance. One thing that I am grateful for as this podcast resident motion sickness sufferer is that the camera work tends to be fairly well done most of the time. And when it does go off the hinge, so does the narrative. And so I don't think I'm missing much looking away when they're running down a pixelated hall. Really, I feel like this movie is the way to approach something with a low budget. Have a solid enough story and couch everything that sucks in the barriers created by the format. The effects are not great. They don't have to be. Everything is low tech and glitches out when things get too spicy. The characters aren't compelling, but that's okay because they're douchebag reality TV tropes there for ratings rather than likability. You don't have to like someone to get in on the story as long as your dislike makes sense narratively. What actually works in this movie is the plot itself. It's a meander through what would really work as a great horror survival game. The rules stay pretty consistent and whittle away at the chances of the dwindling crew. Is it a good movie? Not exactly, but I think it does what it sets out to do. And that's more than I can say for a lot of the movies that I have watched this month. So Steph and I have said it multiple times before on this podcast that foreign horror tends to be elite, and this 2022 film from Taiwan is on the better end of mid-tier horror picks in my opinion. One of my favorite tropes in horror is infective media. As an artsy dork, I'm obsessed with how something can irrevocably change you, whether that's a piece of media, a piece of art, or really any other experience. The human capacity to change and be changed is fascinating, regardless if you're looking at it from a neurological, psychological, or even spiritual process. And this movie leans hard into those ideas, playing on heavy underlying occult mechanisms that claim to be woven into the film itself. Now, I don't want to completely lay out the lore of this film because it is highly entangled in the plot of the movie. The movie's protagonist, Lee Ronan, is sympathetic but maintains a bit of distance. Though you know there's something afoot from the beginning, it's hard not to fall for the enticing potential happy ending in the movie. Despite the sinister obsessiveness of Ronan's documentation efforts, there's an underlying pull because there's a little girl involved. And see, typically, I get pissed off when kids are thrown into the mix for sympathy points because Ronan did very much fuck around and find out. However, I really think that's the only way this movie works. If her motives were purely self-serving, it just wouldn't have the same punch. And the punch is there. And maybe it's weakened for me because I have seen a few similar movies recently. The curse itself is about as general as it comes. Bad luck leading to the death of the characters. But I will say that the infective mechanism is interesting, and the movie resolves consistently, even if not wholly satisfying. And I can't be mad about that. Let's get on to the one I think we're all waiting to trash, which is Tarot.
Oh,
I'm going to start out with a compliment. The monster design was kind of good. I liked it. And the guy who plays the magician, he's a very talented actor. I see him going in the way of the fisherman guy. But that was it. Other than that, I think that they asked Google to write them a movie or something, or that's where they did all their research, because none of that, as somebody who uses tarot cards and has a cursory knowledge of astrology, none of that makes any fucking sense.
It's based off of a book from the 80s.
Oh my God.
That does not have much to do with the overall thing of what they did with the movie. So it's one of those they kind of took the general idea of it. And apparently I think it's a series of books that they kind of use as inspiration. And the kind of rumor was that it was one of those that there was supposed to be a movie in development for a really long time and just kept getting shelved. And then it turned into whatever the hell tarot is. And the monster design is great. All of the monsters were designed by Trevor Henderson, who is the creator of the Siren Head monster. He is a very prolific creature artist from the 2020s, and he's kind of a dick on social media to people. But his art's great, the monster designs are cool, but man, this movie
I do love Siren Head. That freaks me the fuck out every time.
Siren Head's dope.
Yeah, but I just feel like this movie is so rude because I'm not an active tarot card reader, but as a witch, it's rude as shit. That's not how tarot works. You can't give anyone a definitive fucking anything on anything. So it was very much Final Destination with tarot cards, and I fucking hated it.
Good way to grab it.
I don't even read tarot, and I was just thinking, this is just a shit movie.
Yeah, that too. I wasn't invested in any of the characters. I don't care about these people at all. You've given me no reason to.
They were as bland as unseasoned porridge. They just...
I think seasoned porridge is still pretty bland. But
yeah, completely unseasoned. Made with water, microwaved a little bit too long.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what the actors in this movie were. And apparently they took a mediocre book and multiplied it by dog shit to make these movies.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
And it's one of those things too that I think PG-13 horror deserves better than tarot. This is not a good horror movie to introduce a young watcher to. This is not something that I would have shown my teenage sister to be here, enjoy a horror movie, because it's not. I feel so
it's
bad.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
The kills are kind of interesting, whatever. You've got that going for you because, again, it's Final Destination. Are those movies good? No, but are the kills real fun to watch? Hell yeah.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
this is just fucking absurd.
And Final Destination has Tony Todd.
Yeah.
That's true.
At least
Candy Daddy.
I think they could have done more, or at least maybe something to make me want to care about the people that are being murdered, and then maybe I would have found it more interesting. But it's I know nothing about these people, and I don't give a fuck. It just feels
It was
like
all very shoehorned in.
yeah, it feels like the characters were shoehorned in and you just really wanted to focus on the cards because you saw a weird tarot deck somewhere on the internet and you're like, let's do something with that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
okay.
surprised it's based on something because I really thought it was based on like Trust Me Bro. I Googled it because that's what
Right.
it felt like.
That's fair.
The AI Google told me, the AI generated Google
Yes,
search told me that this would be a good movie.
they told me this is what the card means and this is how you do a horoscope. What the fuck? Like just
This is
I
come
how
mean,
you
there's
do
on.
the
a way
tarot,
to do
trust me.
that because it's like I know what my birth cards are and stuff. Like people do things like that, but it's like
Yeah, but I've
again, it's not
never seen that.
determinate. It's not
Yeah.
determinate. No.
It's not. He was running away from something and his feet were touching the ground and he's an earth sign. That means he's gonna die this
Right.
way.
Like,
What?
what?
What the
Oh,
fuck?
It was like Crystal Girly TikTok came to life and like did a
Yeah.
video and
Yes.
it was so bad. It was
It's so bad. It was Crystal
Oh,
from TikTok. That's
Yeah.
exactly what
yeah.
it was.
my
Like,
last brain cell went on holiday.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I hope it's somewhere nice and warm and just
yeah.
enjoying its life because I'm not. I hope it's
yeah.
got. I just hope it's far away.
I
Far,
don't know
far
what
It's
to
away.
do. Like, I get that this could have been better, obviously, for
yeah.
so many different reasons. But it's just at the end of the day, it's not a good movie. It's just
No.
not a good movie.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna
A
lower
punch
my
to the
chud
boob is
rating.
better than this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
I'm
one
gonna
pretty bad.
I'm gonna
It's like
lower my rating to 1.
it's like
Yeah.
what you picture if you're like not into tarot and like one of your friends is like, let me do a tarot reading. And you're like, no. And they're like, what's the worst that could happen? And then you like picture this movie. That's the worst that could
I feel
happen, I
like
guess.
it would be a scary movie to those like super duper duper extreme Christians who think we're all the devil. Like
Yes.
they would find it scary, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave it a
The-
2 just because like some of the kills were funny to me and like the creatures and stuff, but
Like the
other than
creature.
that, you lost me with everything else.
I'm at a
It made
1.
me so mad. It made me so mad I gave it a 0. I was so
That
frustrated
was
by
bad.
this movie.
Fair enough.
It would have made a really cool like team survival horror video game. Like where you
Yeah,
had to collect the cards and you were like trying to survive the monsters, but in like a movie setting, like this is stupid. Like I wasted
Yeah.
so much of my time. I was like,
we were all rooting
The
for
premise
you.
isn't terrible. The storytelling and the way that they chose to like it was bad. The none of it made sense and like I can suspend disbelief and even take things that people like use in a
Mhm.
day-to-day like stuff I know about, stuff I read about. I can even say, okay, you can use this in a magic system for a completely other reason, but it's got to be consistent and it's got to
Yeah.
make sense to me and that they didn't do that.
Like you're
So,
telling me you really don't understand the high priestess because why is she out here smashing bitches with a ladder? That's not what she does.
I'm pretty sure that's not in the cards.
Why are you
No,
slandering my girl, the High Priestess?
that's why I gave it 2 because that first scene, like with the first person that got killed with that ladder, that shit made me laugh so fucking hard that I was just like, okay.
that's fair.
First of all, girl, just move the fuck out the way. Like, why are you still
Right.
laying there?
This part of the podcast sponsored by Ludacris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because seriously, like I kept thinking, I was like, slide
Girl,
to the left, like
slide
I
to
don't
the
know,
left.
you know,
Exactly. Slide to the left. Something shit. You're just laying there.
it was bad. It was pretty bad.
Try real smooth your ass out of the way.
Yeah.
something.
Real smooth.
Shimmy. Do something.
Like none of that was what pissed me off the most too, because you're saying it could be a good like survival movie. Like none of you put up a fucking fight. You all just like were like, okay, I'm dying now. Fight the bitch. Like do something. I don't
My
know.
little pumpkin spice latte friend said I'm gonna die. I guess I'm just gonna have to accept it. Oh no,
No,
no.
I
I'm
guess I'll
throwing some
die.
stuff.
Oh no.
Final
Sorry, High
destination if they
Priestess,
didn't
but
have a
we're
will to live.
I guess, but again, sorry, High Priestess, we're gonna have to box about this because like what the fuck?
Did you have a rating, Molly?
I didn't put it in my bottom 5, but the more we've talked about it, the more I wish I did. I think
Gotta go.
my rage over
Uh,
shark movies just overtook me, and I completely forgot about how angry I am. So I'm going to give this a 0.5.
That's fair.
Very satisfying rating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
0.5 ladders.
We're gonna give it one
I'm
step
gonna
ladder.
give it 2 trains.
One
Now,
launch
0.5
elevator.
step ladders, because even if it's not a full step ladder, she'll still manage to get killed by it.
Mhm. Thank you for listening to A Ghost in the Magazine. You can find us on the interwebs at ghostinthemagazine.site. You can find us on Instagram at GITM Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Nocturnical. You can find Mel on Instagram at Mel Shearer. You can find Sadie on Instagram at Sadie_B. You can find Al on Instagram at Maybe Mockingbird. And you can find Molly on Instagram at Molly_McGill.
Okay, bye.